Hello and welcome to the first episode of the Best series here on Metanoia.Digital YouTube channel. So as you know, this series go live every Monday, and we analyze the best companies in the world concerning their methodologies and tools they use, whatever strategy, whatever, to see how they innovate, how they get their amazing results, and how they're dealing with digital transformation and all this. Okay, and to start, the first company we will be analyzing is Etsy, a very famous handcraft materials marketplace based in the US. They're an amazing company, as we can see by their chart here. They're a very exponential organization. So they ran an IPO, and soon enough they were valued at $2 billion, and right now they have a market cap of $25 billion. Their stock has been growing like crazy since the pandemics. Of course, people is buying more stuff from home. So this is a very nice company for us to analyze. And there's another reason why I'm analyzing Etsy in this first video, because a few weeks ago here in Brazil, Etsy just announced that they would be buying Elo 7, which is basically Etsy in Brazil, and for R1 billion, which is a lot for the Brazilian market, but it's like $200 million, close to Etsy own valuation is like nothing, right? So, but then again, it's an amazing move. We see like the biggest player in the handcraft market buying the biggest player here in the country. So this is quite amazing. It shook the e-commerce market. So that's one of the reasons why I'm analyzing Etsy. One of the main inspirations for this analysis that you'll be watching is this full growth study that the growth hackers community built around Etsy at the time of their IPO and their initial valuation and all this. So we are analyzing most of what we see in Etsy based on this analysis back then, but also updating with new stuff that we are learning from the platform itself. And let's go. So let's start the analysis. And what is quite amazing in Etsy stories is that their founder started Etsy because they were having a hard time to sell their handcraft materials. And that's something very common. Is actually something that Y Combinator usually demands from their entrepreneurs, is that they have lived through that pain. Okay, so that's one of the nice things that we have already in the story of Etsy. So they lived the pain of not having a dedicated marketplace for handcraft materials. And back then, when they started in 2005, we already had eBay growing like crazy. We had Amazon growing like crazy and opening the doors for everybody to sell stuff over there, not only their own products from their own warehouses and all this. So actually, the first thing we see that Etsy does that works quite well in their story is to lead a tribe. So they found a group of people that needed some leadership, some guidance, and people who sold handcraft materials, they could sell on eBay or Amazon, but they were actually taken care of. They weren't being led by those platforms. They didn't give enough tools for them to thrive when selling online. So that's one of the reasons that I think Etsy really worked out, and that for me is the first point that they worked very well when they were innovating, and building this new company. They led a tribe, okay, and that's something you should do. You should find tribes that are underserved concerning leaders and all this, and position yourself there. We see many companies doing this like super niche value proposition. And because of that, and because people see them as their leaders, they thrive, and they grow. Okay, and actually, one of the very interesting things that we see in this case story from Etsy is that from the beginning, to lead this tribe, to be able to lead this tribe, the second thing that they did was active listening to stakeholders and not only customers, because we're so in love with the customer, which is actually the most essential part of every company. If you don't have customers, you don't have a company. But they were actively listening to their stakeholders, especially their suppliers, the sellers, the handcraft people, and the founder, Etsy founder, he was trying to sell, like, he did wood box computers, so it was quite interesting, a different product, but he didn't want to trust only in himself and his own pains and all this, he wanted to listen to other professionals, other artisans, other people doing art and handcraft products and all this. He wanted to listen to them, and that's something I found really interesting. They were trying to lead the tribe of the professional, the people who were building handcraft materials, not leading the tribe of the customers who wanted to buy handcraft materials, because they were all over scattered through the internet. They wanted to lead this tribe. So it's actually really important, and many times you can innovate a lot when you think about the whole map of stakeholders that you have in your company and how all of them can have important feedback and insights to your business, so you can make it improve. And what is quite interesting in this story from Etsy is that one of the first things they did was to travel, okay, throughout US. They traveled throughout the US on those little meetings for handcraft materials. Every small city here in Brazil, it's very common. In the US, it's also very common. You have those places, you have those street fairs where people is selling their own production, those handcraft artisans. So they went to several street fairs and those flea markets, and they were there listening to those producers to understand why were they doing what they were doing, how were they selling, what were their techie savviness level, and how they were understanding the internet, if they were leveraging it or not. And then once the product started to grow and Etsy started to show up, they started to guide those people exactly as they proposed by leading the tribe. So they actively listened to those stakeholders that were a key and an essential piece in their business model, but they also brought the solutions they needed. And then they started to educating those people. And that, for me, is the third great insight they had. They managed to keep a team of people, team of listeners, let's say like that, because in the initial years of the company, they had this team of listeners that went all over the US, listening to people, but also educating them on how to leverage their results with Etsy. So they were also educating their stakeholders. Let's do it like this: stakeholder education. So that I believe is a very powerful idea. It came way before that book called Customer Success, which actually is kind of like the same thing most companies are doing right now, especially software as a service companies. They have this customer success representatives that call people, call their customers to help and guide them on how to use the platform, because they're usually B2B companies that does like that. And although Etsy is a platform, they're looking for their sellers just like a B2B business should do. And they were building customer success way before we start using this concept of customer success, okay? And that, I believe, was what made the company grow so much in such a short period of time back in the US. And then came for me the fourth great element in their strategy that made them grow a lot, was their go global strategy. Because in just 5 years, they were operating in 5 years, okay, they were operating in 127 countries. That's crazy, right? And that, guys, has everything to do, for all of you that are watching this video, this has everything to do with the power of digital. There's no way so that you can go global in such a fast pace as Etsy has done, without digital. There's no way for you to do that. So you need to lead a tribe, and a tribe big enough so you can actually have a market and all this. Have an active listening to those stakeholders that you want to lead, and if necessary, you build a team that is specialized on this. You educate them, but then you go global. Because probably the tribe that you're trying to serve in your country also exists somewhere else. And when you use the power of digital, you can go global quickly. You can scale faster, and you can it's a very powerful tool. We never had anything like that. So the fourth strategy from Etsy that I think you guys can use in your own company is to think global. And that's actually a problem we have here in Brazil. We have such a huge market here, 200 million people, 100 million people online. And we think, if I build something for this market, it's good and it's done, which is actually the opposite from Israel. And the country of Israel, they're one of the top, one of the leading startup nations in the world. They had so many amazing tech companies and all this, and they only have like a market of 8 million people. And why is that? Why they're so successful? Because they never start anything thinking about their domestic customer base, because they don't have one. They don't think about their domestic market is too small. So everything they do, they start global, and all the time they're thinking digital. They are the country for tech startups. Why is that? Because they think digital, because they don't have a market big enough, so they need to go global. And to go global, digital. And finally, the fifth strategy that I think you guys should think of, and which is like the future, the business model of the future is being a platform. And that's exactly what Etsy did. You're connecting two sides. That's it. The business model of platforms where you connect two sides, it's a very scalable one. You reduce so many things, logistics, warehouses, all this stuff, professionals, hiring, and all this. Uber, Airbnb, all those big references, they use this platform business model, and they reduce a lot of their costs, and they scale a lot. So this is the fifth element on their strategy that I think can be useful for you guys. So let's review. Lead a tribe, find people that are being underserved, and you can lead a tribe not by being one person, but by being like a platform, an e-commerce. You take care of those people, you active listening to them, you have a team dedicated to helping them, educating them, maybe using the customer success model. And when you do that, when you find this tribe and you serve them with the best that you have, then you can go global with the power of digital. And the best way to scale is by becoming a platform. So you see, it is not by chance that Etsy came from this to this valuation. It is not by chance. You see a very powerful strategy over here, connecting to customers, connecting to their stakeholders, leading the tribe, becoming the reference in the market, and going global with a platform. Now, when we look at innovation, beyond those strategies, one of the best ways that I like to see innovation happening in companies is by using the business model canvas. And as you know by now, the business model canvas is not something that you come here and you add post-its. Oh, here's my customer, here's my value proposition, and so on and so forth. No, the idea of the the business model canvas is that you actually build an innovative business model. So you come to each one of those blocks inside the business model canvas and you try to innovate in them. And that's an analysis I like to do a lot with the customers, with the customers that I'm working with, and also the companies that I'm analyzing and all this. So let's do it for Etsy. And the first thing that I see that Etsy worked very well was their key partners. They were trying to lead the tribe once again, right? For who? For handcraft producers. Okay, so that was their goal. Before that's really important. And I'll probably add this to here, because they're actually partners for Etsy. They're not their customers, because the customer is the one who put money on your pocket, and who is putting money in their pocket is people buying the handcraft materials. Okay, the thing is, since they're a platform, right? Just like we saw here, they connect those two sides. So they're actually transforming their key partners, their suppliers, their product suppliers into a customer. That's basically what they're doing. They're taking care as good as a customer. Okay, and what was happening is that those guys were underserved, right? So the first thing they innovated was to, hey, let's serve these guys better. They have nowhere to go. Amazon was so large already, eBay was so large already, they weren't taking care of those guys. And once they did that, they started innovating in a new activity, right? That was the customer success piece that we just spoke of, right? And this proximity with their partners brings to me a new concept that I've been working a lot with my own customers in the consulting gig that we run here in Metanoia.Digital. But that's actually very important, and it's kind of like new. We talk a lot about customer experience right now, employee experience, but we sometimes lack thinking about the stakeholder experience. And that's exactly what they were doing. Think about your stakeholder experience. And some businesses, just like them, they have so many stakeholders, so many different stakeholders, and you need to take care of those stakeholder experience. And once they were doing that, this stakeholder experience, one of the things that I find very interesting in their approach, that was a huge differentiator for them in the beginning, was to bring CRM into small handcraft producers. So those people, they didn't have a way to keep their relationship with the customers in this side. So as you can see, you go to a street fair or to a flea market. You talk to the people, you buy whatever you want, you pay most of the times in cash. Okay, and you don't have a relationship with your customers. The producers didn't have a good relationship with their customers. Sometimes you become like an artist, and people start following you, so you begin to become like a very interesting people to follow, so people start buying more and more of you, and social network was starting to grow back then, and helped Etsy to explore this new do-it-yourself traffic and community stuff. But most of them, they didn't have this concept of customer relationship. And the tool that Etsy provided for them, because they learned through their active listening, gave them the power of CRM and customer relationship management. So right now, those small producers, they could get closer to their customers, send new products, send new products that they were launching. They could do like a discount on a very specific basis and all this. So this helped a lot for Etsy to become actually the leader of this tribe. And finally, one of the things that I like a lot in their business model is their value proposition to become super niche. And they never change that. They never change that. So their customer segment is very closed, is people who want handcrafted materials, and that's it. Right now in the e-commerce world, we have so many big players like Amazon, Alibaba, eBay, and here in Brazil we have Magalu, which is a big company. In Latin America we have Mercado Libre, which is another huge company. So those companies are becoming so huge that it's really hard for you to compete on those on an e-commerce platform. So it's much better to either sell inside them, and there are some new startups that are like consolidating Amazon sellers, because it's such a good business. You have revenue, you have operating profit and all this. So some startups are becoming like holders, a holding company for different sellers inside Amazon. And what I think is the way to go if you want to build an e-commerce platform right now is to become super niche. Just like Amazon was in the past, with the books, and Etsy with the handcraft and all this. So Amazon grew a lot and started selling everything and became the everything store. But the new companies that are working well and that are showing results inside the e-commerce market industry, they're super niche right now. You don't have space to compete with Amazon or Alibaba. You need to get specialized or sell inside their platforms. So if you want to build an e-commerce platform, become super niche, and I think that's the way to go. Okay. And finally, the last tool that we're going to use to understand Etsy is the EXO Canvas, which is not very common as the business model Canvas. But the idea is based on the book Exponential Organizations, where you have this framework with 11 attributes that every company that's considered an exponential organization has at some level. Okay, so you have the MTP, the massive transformative purpose here on the top, and then for the left side you have the scale attributes, the scale acronym, and for the right hand side you have the ideas acronym. Okay, and what we're doing here, since we're just like analyzing Etsy, I'll be grading them and assessing their use of some of those attributes. Some of them I'm not inside, so I don't have control over it. I cannot know. But I'll try to do my best effort here. Okay. The idea of the EXO Canvas, of course, is to be a building platform, just like business model Canvas is. So you can actually build the concept of an exponential organizations. But since here we're assessing it, I'm just going to be grading. And for the massive transformative purpose, I actually believe that Etsy has like I would say, let's give them a 10, because their massive transformative purpose was very clear from the beginning, was to leverage handcraft materials all over the world, and that's a very powerful purpose. Those people were being underserved in the internet landscape, and they could simply disappear in a few years if no one would go there and take this purpose and become the leader of this cause. So that's why it's a 10. Now, Stefan the Man, when we think about it, is actually the gig economy and the platform business model. This is a given. Stefan the Man is just like Uber doesn't have any driver. I don't know. Flipkart in India doesn't have any delivery boys. People are just staff on demand. They're not employees for the company. And actually, the sellers are staff on demand for Etsy, right? So that's why a 10. And community also the same thing, just like we mentioned, they started building this community of handcraft producers that were selling online. They were connecting with those communities. They were flying and traveling all over the US to get connected to the community, and right now they're very powerful. Okay, also the same 10. Let's do it like 9, okay? Grade 9 for them on leverage assets, because I actually don't know how many warehouses they have, if they go to a new country, if they need to have warehouses and all this. But as far as I know from everything that I saw and that I analyzed, they actually don't. So that's why they managed to grow so fast in so many different countries in their beginning. That's so they actually leverage a lot of assets, cloud-based infrastructure and all this. Okay, and finally, also a number 10 for their engagement, because people who sell there, they're completely in love with the platform. Okay, now algorithms I couldn't know, because I'm not actually there. I know it's a very powerful e-commerce platform. It's very robust. People who use love it. But I actually don't know how they work inside, both for their customers and their suppliers, the sellers over there. They have a lot of artificial intelligence tools and all this. So I couldn't vote or grade any grade here in algorithms. Okay, so I will leave it blank. And the same thing goes for experiments. I don't know. I couldn't find anywhere how many experiments they do, if they have changed the platform a lot, if they're testing and trying new stuff. I'm not sure. But since they have this very powerful team of listeners, and they're very close to their community, I believe they have. But I won't be voting, okay? What I can vote is their e-commerce. I actually don't like many of the things in the interface that they have, but I know they work very well for their customer. So if I were one of their customers or sellers, probably I would like the interface better. But also, when we're talking about interfaces here in the exponential organization model, we're talking about a lot about APIs. We're talking about a lot about marketplaces, and we talk a lot about how people communicate inside the company. What are the interfaces that we have inside? Is it an easy onboarding process for a new supplier or a new seller that wants to register in the platform? Is it do we have a good relationship with other stakeholders, not only with the sellers and all this? So the interface is a little bit broader. This grade is dedicated to their online platform, which I kind of don't like too much. But they're actually a marketplace. They're an ecosystem of players. They are a platform business model. So they should have this very well. And the same goes for dashboards, because one of the things that I said to you here in the business model is that they do this CRM piece for their customers. So I know they have a good work with data, but I'm not inside there to understand how well this goes. So I'm grading 9 because of the work that they do for their sellers, but everything else I'm not quite sure. Finally, on autonomy, I don't know. Okay, I'm not inside here. We're actually talking a lot about decision making, about the culture of the company, so I needed to be inside. If anyone of you listening, you can talk about it. I would love to. And finally, social. We're talking a lot about the use of social technologies, social media, and using those tools to leverage the community, to have more engagement, and inside the company to have less email, less meetings, and all this, and have a more asynchronous decision making. And I see, at least for the social media part, that Etsy is a very powerful company in the use of this. So this is the EXO Canvas assessed for Etsy. I hope you enjoyed this analysis, and I see you on Wednesday when we're starting to dig and the analysis of some of the leaders of our generation around innovation and how they work with innovation. So I hope you enjoyed this first episode of the series talking about Etsy. And next week we'll be talking about another startup that is I'm a huge fan of them, and I hope to see you guys there.